Alright, this is one of those what the heck, let's go for it streams, and you know, I'm just trying to document what I'm working on day to day. It might be interesting to somebody, somewhere, somehow. More interesting than, writing spreadsheets, I suppose. Anyway, it's code, baby. So why not, share some of what's going on? It's technical, it's weird, but today I'm doing a little bit of something you might not have seen much, which is a Sublime text plugin stuff. Just tweaking the code, or actually I'm modifying an existing plugin called Unicode Insert, and I'm making it... Hello, how you doing? Hopefully this mic is picking things up. I put the volume to the top. Maybe it's too high, I don't know, you gotta decide, but they say put it up into the red, baby. And I've got some AI generated background music to kind of keep things from being too sterile while I'm in my quiet modes. About 3.5 minutes of very boring AI generated groovy music. I had Ace Step generate some groovy music for us. So at least I know it'll be license free. Guaranteed. Twitch actually blanked out some part of one of my streams because of the copyrighted stuff that I didn't know I was using. I just picked it up off some site. It had like all these things where it was like, yeah, just use these. They're royalty free, sure. And it's just, it's probably cobbled from everywhere. It wasn't a very good site, so I kind of knew from the bad design and stuff that it was probably slop. Anyway, you gotta do what you gotta do. I could have gone to some licensing or there's YouTube music as well. I think they have a thing where you can, there's free tracks and others that you can pick from. But then I'd sound like everyone else. So instead I get to sound like Ace Step and everyone else, baby. So hopefully it won't be too distracting. If it becomes so, let me know. I'll turn it down. I'll switch it out. I've got other tracks that are probably more fun. But I just wanted to come up with something that would be, again, I'll link a bunch of things together and make something that's kind of groovy and chill. I've got pastoral music, other things. Anyway, how you doing? It's another beautiful day in Austin, middle of the day. Most productive times from 10 to 2, they say. So I'm about to be in my least productive time. Join me, won't you? No, but for me, I don't know. I went out for a bike ride, got some coffee ingredients, coffee stuff. So I'm ready to go for it. Are you ready? Oh, excuse me. I haven't quite woken up yet. Alright, fresh-faced. Let's go for it. We're doing today... let me jump into it. Let's go straight for the code. Boop. Hello. So this was just, I was looking to see what I can do with this. There's an Atari Basic syntax for VS Code that someone made. It's a copy of, it's basically a transformation, a rework, an adaptation, a translation of my my language, Atari Basic language, over to VS Code. And let me see, I was looking for the plugins. Where are they? Where's the plugins? Well, that's weird. Oh, you know what it is? I put it over on the other side, and so it doesn't show up over here anymore. Funky. Okay, so yeah, I stuck extensions on this side. What a lovely mess. Okay, so yeah, there's an Atari basic syntax, as you can see. And it says I should restart to enable it. It should be enabled already. I could reload the whole window, see if that does the trick too. Nope, doesn't seem to. Restart extensions. I may have it disabled in this workspace. No, I don't think so. So I don't know what's going on with it. I might have to uninstall, reinstall, see if that helps. But it's supposed to be, it actually has my name on it. Yes, I trust this publisher. Attempting. Oh, it needs WASM time. for some reason. Or your machine for the changes to take effect. Okay, I need to know why it's doing that. It should be trustworthy. It should be. Oh, that's from Atari Dev Studio. Okay, that doesn't matter. Never mind. That was a different message. I thought it was from this one, but it was not. So it's... Oh, now it says it's enabled. Okay, cool. And still doesn't look like it's reading it correctly. Or at least parsing it correctly. But maybe I have... Yeah, and it does say it's Atari Basic. It knows that it's Atari Basic. Let's see what the language-based settings are. Oh, there are some. Breadcrumbs. Oh, I see. You can do different things in the editor. Oh, you can set the colors for things. Yeah, I don't know if that's what I want. Pretty fun to play with it in this font, though. So yeah, this is just the Atari Classic font. I thought I had one called 8-bit Atari, and I think it might have been something that got hallucinated or something. So now I can't find it, but I probably have it installed over here. A laptop. Let me check. Atari, what's up? Go straight to font book. And see what all the Ataris are here. But yeah, if you're doing, we got one called, yeah, there it is, 8-bit Atari. Okay, I must not have installed it on my desktop. You get it in the Finder and copy it to, let's take all the Atari fonts. I think I have all those smooth, extra smooth, chunky. Atari Classic, I just use Atari Classic without anything after it, and that seems to be picked up by most things. But let me put it in my down. Bring it over to Ultraman. I'm pretty much putting everything like... Excuse me. Need more coffee. Screenshots and everything else into my downloads folder lately. It's one of those... if you do screenshots periodically and you're like concerned that you might take a screenshot of private information or tax forms and accidentally upload them to your iCloud, and you don't want to do that, that's something to be wary about. Let me see, I'll put this 8-bit Atari font in retro here. I guess it's helpful if you see what I'm doing. Even if it's boring, at least you can see I'm doing something here. See what I'm doing on the screen, so yeah. So by reconfiguring your screenshots to go into your downloads folder, which is fairly convenient, or not your documents folder, but you know, some alternative folder, even if make your own screenshots folder, or whatever, it won't end up being accidentally in your iCloud when you don't want it to be. But generally speaking, from what I understand, iCloud is very secure. I cannot verify this, that Pixelmator is free of malware. Oh, why does it want to open in Pixelmator? Wait a minute. Font book. Why is Pixelmator the default for ETF? Let's change that. That seems rather peculiar. And then I can change all. Thank you. Yes, I will. No reason to open those. Okay, and so this... Hold on. And here's our font. 8-bit Atari. So if I use 8-bit Atari, which is... I think that's the one I was recommending. Is it now installed? Let's see. Get font book over here. Whoop. Doesn't seem to be. Old batch, traditional, web, modern, nerd fonts, etc. I don't know what these... Oh, these nerd fonts are for your terminal typically, and for editors. For people who edit a lot of text, do a lot of terminaling, and terminaling, you want something readable. These days fonts are really, there's so many to choose from. You can have something that maybe isn't the most readable, but at least it's a little more fun. Hmm. And still readable. Of course, when fonts were in Atari days, we were just 8x8. It was a lot more straightforward to just make a bunch of fonts all day. Now you need special tools and, frankly, training to make all the weights correct. But you can have a lot of fun with these. Anyway, I just wanted to install this one. So, what's up with that? Does it not ask to install? It does. Usually it does. Install, please. Okay, so now that's installed. Cool. So I had made that the preferred font for my Sublime stuff, my Sublime text plugin stuff. So I think it's currently using. We go to Atari tools. Oh, actually, I need to open. I have this user stuff open, so I can open up the settings, Sublime settings for Atari Basic CI or Atari Basic, and modify it to use 8-bit Atari. So and that should do the trick. And I guess I'll do the same for this one. And we'll see if that if it has all the proper Unicode. It should. Also mapped in the proper places. I think those have been officially defined somewhere. The particular characters. Oh, and I noticed I didn't have the same extension on that. Or I do? Oh, I see. One of the reasons maybe I want to have a looser version that will... I don't know. But basically the purpose of having two language versions here, if you're wondering, is that one supports case insensitive. So you can just type your code out, case insensitive. And yeah, this is kind of becoming distracting. I'm going to turn it down. Thank you for noticing. I also noticed. So anyway, let's see what's going on with... I also have I was checking out to see if my iPad whiteboard thing works, but it does not at this time. iPad tall, I have turned on. Device not a frog. Let's go to virtual camera. Let's go to not a frog. There it is. Hey, cool. So yeah, when I want to do like whiteboarding, I can use my iPad to do it if I want. Wouldn't that be neat? Anyway, check out the weather in Austin. 81 degrees, people. That's crazy. That is crazy. But March 1st, 2nd, March 2nd. Welcome, March 2nd. 2026. A day that will live in infamy, historically. But one which we're going to spend just chilling out. As if everything was great. And we're going to enjoy this sunny weather. And everything's fine. We're good. In case anybody's doing a wellness check on us here in Austin, we're okay. We'll muddle through this thing. So anyway, I was making a new plugin based on Unicode insert. That's where I was before I got distracted by myself. And the Unicode insert plugin is pretty cool. It allows you to insert Unicode characters with whatever shortcut you set. And the basic gist of that is it has, like I'll give you the general architecture of a plugin, of a Sublime plugin. Actually, they can be pretty, they can have a lot of things in them. So this is the Atascii insert plugin that I'm making, so that I can insert Atascii codes in my files. So when I'm working with, oops, I gotta turn on my font, I think. Let me see if my font book works here. Font book. Make sure 8-bit Atari is turned on. Hello. Is this font enabled? No, it's deactivate. Just deactivate. Just reactivate. It's called 8-bit. Oh, maybe it needs to be capitalized. 8. Oh, please, all please. Now activate. All right, now let's fix that. See what's going on with our settings here. See, this is loose. Oh, it's using Atari Classic Regular for some reason. All right, see if that does the trick for us. No. Maybe it's the other one I need to change. Huh. 8-bit Atari. Interesting. Let me see if there's anything else about it that's funky. I don't know. Let me see. Maybe if I reload it. I don't know. We'll get there. This is a casual stream today. We'll muddle through. But yeah, I can show you the general gist of the Atari Tools plugin as well. Just like the whole thing. The whole spiel. Sublime plugins for Sublime are pretty straightforward. They're implemented in a mixture of code like this, which is JSON, and code like this, which is Python, and whatever other supporting things you need. But there's special, basically all the Sublime files are JSON files that just have special Sublime extensions on them. So when you want to have a menu item, you describe it inside of a JSON file. Some extra commands, you describe them in a JSON file. You want to do some key mapping, describe them in a JSON file. Pretty straightforward. And then the key mapping is like, couldn't be easier. Control plus shift plus A, control plus shift plus A. If I do that combination, it brings up the palette and so on. So pretty cool. Then you have the ability to add items to the menu. In this case, this adds two key bindings. Let's see, under preferences package settings, it opens up, it has that. So if we go to Sublime preferences package settings, you'll see that this thing there, where is it? Maybe I don't have it turned on right now, but typically, well, you'll see that all these things do. Oh, there it is. It has there. I don't know why they're not alphabetical or something. That'd be nice. They usually are. It looks like they usually are. Oh, it must be that user ones come like after all the alphabetized other ones. Because these are also alphabetized. Well, no, they're not. I don't know what's going on. Okay, anyway. So yeah, you get your key bindings default added by just describing it here. So yeah, each editor is going to have its own weird plugin architecture. This was originally written for Sublime. There's the plugin that we use in Marlin, which is auto build, was originally conceived for Atom because it had a plugin architecture and you could bring up a palette and put buttons in it and stuff. It was pretty straightforward. I think it was done with Tkinter actually, or Tkinter. I don't know how to pronounce it. But a lot of pop, let's call it TK. It's very popular. So then all the other stuff is just there to support the other code. So there's certain things that you can do in Sublime, like if you can make something like this where a hover creates something that pops up. So that's one type of plugin, the thing you could do. But you can see it's a nice little window, and I believe that it supports a subset of HTML, so you can make windows that have structured things in them, and it lays them out for you. But it doesn't seem to have very complicated, like you can't run a lot of complex JavaScript inside your HTML, I don't think. So you're kind of limited in what you can do, but that's fine because it's an editor. it's meant to be a text editor, and this stuff is meant to just like have the facilities you need to do stuff within the editor. It's a little different from what you have in VS Code. The plugin architecture in VS Code is built out of JSON. I should say there's some JSON, of course, to describe things, but then there's also a lot of TypeScript, JavaScript. You have your choice, and then it's built on Node basically in the background, or you could say it's Node-like, and then and then you get access to a VS Code class in your JavaScript. And so everything is sort of implemented in JavaScript in the way that you would implement stuff in Sublime in Python. And those, have a nice crossover with each other. It's pretty easy to translate between Python and JavaScript, so to speak. In general, so if your functional parts need to be, have perfect parity, the internal model and so on, then, those are what you would use your common JavaScript for, and then you would have the specialized elements for each editor have to be done differently. So, you could take that common JavaScript and convert that into Python or back, whichever you did first, and then bring that into whichever editor of choice you're making a plugin for. So the fact that the parity between the two is pretty straightforward. It should be interesting when I get to the point of converting some of these plugins to VS Code, or like doing a better version of the syntax, maybe. That was one thing. We still never got the syntax working. We went looking, but we didn't see it. It gave us a little section where we can put things, but we don't really know what to put there yet. So that's kind of interesting. We'll have to figure that out. But in the moment, you can see that's not doing any kind of color coding of the language or anything like that. So I don't think it's currently recognizing the syntax. And then the other stuff about, the Atari Basic plugin is it really should do more. It should color the syntax, and then it should also give the same stuff that's in Sublime. So as I finish up my 650 tools stuff, I will bring it over into Visual Studio Code as well and make it work there. Even though I don't use VS Code much because it's kind of unwieldy. It's got so much going on. It's just like get all this stuff out of my face, all this fruit salad, or what do you want to call it, out of my face when I'm working. They're fine. So editor, font, yeah, this is where I set my editor, and just so I could have the editor look like this for now. So let's do this. I think this is allowed. Yay, we're back to using regular editing. Yay. Not that font is much better, but it's certainly, I don't know. Eek, not for basic anyway. So anyway, back to where I was. Let's put that away. We know that we were looking to see if 8-bit Atari was going to do the right thing as far as the right font. And it doesn't, so I guess I'll go back to the previous font for now. Fine. So this is the active one. And if we go back to our list file, look, it works. Okay, so we'll stick with that for now, until I figure out what's going on with the font being not seen. I don't know why that's a thing right now. It may be that it's just I need to restart the editor or something like that. Some apps might not see fonts that are enabled, even though I don't know what I'm saying. Some apps might or might not. I don't know. We can quit. Sure, we'll quit Sublime and just see. Oh, of course I have a bunch of shrunken windows, so I have to wait for all of them to be reopened, and then... This is one of those things, I don't know why it does this exactly. Maybe the newer version of Sublime doesn't, but like, and most other, as far as I know, other apps don't, but for some reason Sublime, when you quit it, it wants to reopen all your windows that were minimized. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. This is version 3. I should point that out. I haven't splurged for version 4 yet, even though I should. Um, it's just like version 3 does everything I need. I don't know why I would want version 4 yet. Um, and I hope I won't be forced to, switch for any reason. And then this is also the same 8-bit Atari. So we'll just go back to classic regular for now and put those away. We don't need to play with that much more. Okay, and the reason I have VS Code open, I don't know. I don't even know. Let's get back to it. So yeah, the thing I was building yesterday, I was working on trying to figure out, or Saturday, I was trying to figure out how to get the snorky stuff to work, so I'll be showing you that shortly. But give you the final stuff on this ASCII insert thing, now that we've got it showing correctly, is you hit Control-Shift-A twice, and this pops up, so you can get inverted characters and insert them where you need them. And then Control-Shift-AS, and then that gives you the special characters, control characters as it were, from the Atari, that were a hassle to type sometimes. Some of these, depending on how you use them, like if you print escape, and then up arrow, it'll print the up arrow literally. But if you just print the up arrow inside of a string, it moves the cursor up. So it's got this cool thing where it does have the concept of escaping for special characters that do things inside of strings, so that's kind of neat. But anyway, so this, for example, clears the screen, I think, and that's the escape character. Escape, get it? Up and to the left? I don't know. But anyway, when you have it inverted and you print that, that actually clears the screen. So if you really want to print that character for some reason, like you've redefined it, but typically when we use characters in graphical situations, we're going to be using them as machine language, and printing them directly, poking them directly into the memory. So, and then the other thing I could do with this palette probably might help, I don't know, would be to rearrange these characters, because like people don't typically care, oh, it's character number 10 or whatever. Like I definitely want this one because it's number 12. I would say that the best way to arrange these would be like, I don't know, put the suits together and then rearrange these like graphical characters so that they make a little box and so on. So I'll kind of like, I'll come up with some idea about that and rearrange them. But that's kind of cool. So I didn't know how to do that before. So I used the plugin code from Unicode insert, and it did a pretty good job with the palette. And you can see even with this font, this other font showing, this pop-up will show the Atari font, which is very convenient. So you can insert it in here even though it will appear as an unknown Unicode character that's not mapped to this font. It'll be fine. So pretty cool. So this is how you would do an actual insert command, and you can like read this at your leisure. And this will be published in the 6502 tools pile on my GitHub repo. But I was just cleaning it up so it's a little bit reduced, and I was trying to like figure out if I can pack things into this class and have it work properly, and how do I pass things into it was really the question. And I asked I asked an LLM. In particular, I asked I think GPT OSS 20B how to do this, and it didn't give me an answer that worked. So it was like, oh, define a something in the class, like a symbol in the class, a variable, a member, and then you can just redefine it in your subclasses. And then when you go to reference it in your in your class that you subclassed, uh, it'll find that and it'll replace it and do the right thing. So I was going to experiment with that right now. So the way it works right now is it works. So anything I do that's screwed up will make it break, basically. So right now we have this part. I just wanted to, like, the fact that it's working is great. I should probably move on, but like I consolidated the code down to this point from the other version. So here's the older one, which was I just copied one insert and to the other one so that they would have parity and it'd be like, oh yeah, it's simple enough. Then the rework, of course, I wanted to take the common parts and consolidate them. So I just put these in here so that you pass in whatever the self was from this, and it happens to be, you're referring to a Sublime plugin text command object, basically, of some kind is your self. So when the self is passed, it becomes this who knows who command object, and we just do the same things we would have done with self in here. So it's not pretty, but it's fine. It doesn't pollute the namespace because nobody else is going to make a tasky get characters HTML somewhere. I don't think in their plugin. I don't think it matters either because I think they're isolated from each other in terms of namespaces. I could be wrong, but this works. So anyway, I wanted to just see if I could get this part to work, but I got as far as making this a subclass of that, but it's still doing the same thing, that I'm not calling into this into the parent to do stuff. I'm overriding that, for example, and I should be doing something like, let's see, run self-edit. Is there a way to do like parent? I wonder. I don't think there is. Like I'm coming from here, I should be able to say, hey, parent thing, do this. If I'm overriding and I'm not calling the parent thing. So like I can do something here like, and that's the other thing. I'm not sure if I know how to debug in this. There is a window you can print out into here when things happen. So if I do, for example, this is the other thing I wanted to do was invert selected text. So I'll get to that. But the inverting being it'll take it from the normal characters and invert them, or the inverted characters and make them the normal ones, which just subtracts 128 from the code. But I have to do it with Unicode, so I'm not sure what the deal is with that. So that'll be an interesting one to solve. And also replacing the selection is something that I haven't found a great example of. Like everything I've found has been kind of convoluted. So that'll be another thing to check out. But you can see inside of Sublime, you do get a Sublime object. Same way in VS Code, you get a VS Code object that you can call and do stuff that's specific, and you can get pretty fancy with it. You can, add new tabs or open files or run commands that belong to other plugins even. There's all kinds of fancy things you can do. So, let's see. Let me just dive in here. Okay, good. Get characters, HTML. I'd like to inherit from this while also defining something for it. Well, let's see if this happens at all. So if I say, I don't see a hello happening there. Let's see if a hello happens when I do this. Oop. Yeah, at least I'm getting that. Reloading. See, it tells you all kinds of nice things. Hello. Okay, cool. It's doing that. So that gives us an option, a nice ability to do a little print-based debugging. Not my favorite way. There's probably better ways to do this. If you know some tools for like actual like live debugging the Python and so on in Sublime, please let me know. Uh, if you're making your own Sublime plugins as part of your workflow. Uh, I know that maybe Sublime isn't the most popular editor. It's like an $80 text editor, something like that. I forget what it costs at the moment. Maybe you can get a discount. But yeah, it's a pricey text editor, but it's really worth it. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. Like you don't have a lot of as we were saying, fruit salad around the outer edges of the thing, constantly reminding you that it is Sublime, and you can get really minimal with it, which is very nice. These other editors also have minimal mode, which is good. But then you don't necessarily have everything you need at your disposal when it's in minimal mode. But anyway, we have a way to debug, so let's move on to this where I can say, all right, so how do I call the parent? Well, let's ask an LLM. So this LLM gave me, again, bad advice. It said this mix-in, if I use it, it'll have, well, it looks like this one isn't inheriting correctly, so that might be one of the problems, is that it gave me this, but it didn't tell me to make it a subclass of this. So this is like a mix-in situation. It did, I think it did before. So this is what it told me the first time. It said, oh yeah, use this one. This will take that. This will have this. Just override it, man. You'll be fine. And then everything else will work. And it didn't. It did not work. And also, I don't know if self-resource name was even the original way it worked. Well, let's take a quick look. Was it no, no. Why would it have self on it? That's the other thing. I guess that's a difference between something that's declared as a class versus something that's declared as, what do you call it? There's another way to declare things that doesn't involve namespaces quite the same way. I'll have to go back and review my Python. But there's another way of defining things that doesn't give you that, doesn't require self on it. Or if it does, then it doesn't inherit. Something like that. Maybe it is always class, but I've never done inheritance before, so this is kind of a little bit of a new thing, at least in Python. Of course, I've done inheritance before. Of course, I've done it before. Don't be ridiculous. Okay, so let's get there. Right, I was using Translate as my guide for doing how to replace a selection. Or again, you can have multiple selections, so you want to invert them all. And how do you do that? So that was the next trick I was going to do in here. And you can just add commands into your plugin all day long. So it can be, and then you just have to map them, however, and it's good to document them. So we typically document them by putting them into the command palette, and then it shows, hey, use that, and it'll show you as if it was all just integrated in the first place. Right, moving on to I mean, it's clean the way it is, honestly, but packaging it up nicely it just seems like the better way to go sometimes. So let's see if we do this. If I were to just inherit without doing anything else and not override stuff. Oh, now it breaks. I don't know why. That's interesting. Yeah, it works when I say run. But I didn't need... Oh, maybe you do need to override run. Like that's required for some reason. Of course, on choice symbol is like... And the other one, they're both... let's see. Yeah. Custom. So on command... Oh, wait. While I'm doing some cleanup, I might as well fix that little bug. On navigate equals do this. All right, so yeah, so that's how that works. I'm not sure why it has to have run. And the works now. Take that out. Broken. So it has to have run for some reason. And then what does run do? Alright, yeah, I was gonna ask the LLM a real quick question. Real quick Python question. In Python, how do I I know this is like Python 101. I'm new to Python. I just use what I know and that's it. This is it. How do I call the parent class? Method, right. I guess they're called functions in Python. Super. Alright, so I should be able to say super run and pass file name, and then also pass it here, and pass it here, and use it here. And hopefully, oh yeah, that worked. So I can do that. And then here, same thing. And then, I don't need the other stuff. I'm just done at this point. Boom. So there, that cleans it up a little. That's a little Python inheritance trick. Oh, wait. Now it's broken. I broke it. Wait, how did I do that? Self edit. Oh, right. I think if you're passing it that way, you don't need self. No, that's not it either. Damn it. What'd I do? What'd I do? Alright, let's go back to this point where it was sort of working. Oh, that one wasn't working though. Okay. Actually, it wasn't working. You're giving me crap here. There's no such thing as parent, is there? Oh, maybe parent? Surely there's a thing. Super? It says super. Init. Base init. Super init. I can't supposed to take super. Notice how every init calls super init, allowing each, yeah, I see how it's doing. In simple inheritance cases, parent dot works, but it is less flexible. You have to pass self though, apparently. So let me see if this works without self. Ah, there it goes. So yeah, I did something right there. Alright. Oh, no. Maybe well, that one works, but the other one doesn't. Those are the special ones. Oh, wait. No? This is very strange. So it's sort of working, but then it's not. Why? What am I missing here? Self on choice symbol would be good with that, right? That's still popping up, but the other one isn't. Oh, wait. There's our problem. There's your problem. Alright, yeah. I was just experimenting with one, but not both. And now everything is clear. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. Python. I do love Python. It's so quick to put things together, and the way it works in theory underneath the hood is pretty cool. Like you know, things like the idea that you have an object that's like a range. The idea of a range, for example, is like it's like a functional thing that returns a thing, and the way you can build things like a range that do a similar thing that that aren't. It doesn't have to actually contain, build the actual giant long range of data in a big old table. It just returns it for you, using whatever. Yeah, there's some really cool stuff going on in Python um, that hides the complexity of the language under the hood. And you can do some cool things extending it with C, C++, whatever. Probably Rust, I'm sure, now. Oh, so good. I haven't had enough caffeine at all today. Or food, frankly. I got some breakfast bread uh, that I like. It's like $6 a loaf, but it's so worth it. Um, whatever the value of $1 is anymore. Alright, so this plugin, we shall call this done. So yeah, the other parts of this are, so all it does is now that we have it working, we can kind of see what it's actually doing. When it first runs, it gets the content, and then it shows the pop-up. So show pop-up is a thing you can do in, apparently in a text command from the view that belongs to it. So this basically, the window itself, this here is a view, and this view has content in it, and it can do things like show pop-up. I'm referring not to this content, but this content. So this view will actually have like a file associated with it, and then that file will be, loaded, and the file will be changed. The content of the file will be changed or not. So the dirty flag, and other things like that. So one of the things you can do from a view is show a pop-up in the view, and you can use, apparently, you can tell it that it's HTML. There may be other formats you could use, so that's cool. So Sublime.html is a flag of some kind. And then location, as far as, I don't know what that means. Like, basically it figures out, it automatically determines the location, as opposed to using Sublime.left or Sublime.right or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, see, that doesn't work. It doesn't recognize that. But there's probably something like that. You have to basically look all this stuff up, and then the maximum height of the thing, and that's basically what happens. Then when someone navigates and clicks on something, a link inside of it, it calls on choice symbol, and apparently passing the symbol that was passed, and that comes from, even though symbol is here, it's like, it actually is the URL, whatever's in the href field, I think, of the link is what comes in here. So it says symbol, but it's really the link value, which is cool. So that's comes in, and then this part that just grabs the file is simple enough. It finds the resources inside of the plugin. In this case, the name is HTML, and then it just loads it as a resource. Resource is 0, so it takes the first one it found, and then it returns that, so basically the content, and then that's what it shows as HTML. Pretty cool. Very straightforward. This doesn't even need to be here, frankly. It could just be blended into run, but separated because, that's just, it's nice to be that way academically. And then finally, the last thing it does, we should note is in the view, it tells it to run an insert command in the view, giving it the symbol character that was passed. And then that does, in fact, insert at the cursor the character that you selected. Boop, and an inverted 2. So pretty cool. I would say that in terms of plugins, it's one of the simpler ones. And then the other stuff that's supported is it sets up a context menu so that it shows up here. And it provides commands so that they show up in the palette at the top. And again, they behave just like they do when activated from the keyboard commands. And I made the inverted one kind of like the first one. Control A, or I should say Control Shift A, hit that twice, and that brings that up. Whereas Control Shift A followed by Control Shift S brings up this. So pretty cool, and then that's your key map, of course. Finally, this option to see the key bindings, which I don't know what this is useful for, to be honest, because you can open that, but you can't save it, or, well, maybe you can. It's letting me. So yeah, I guess you can if you want. You can modify the default key map and change it to whatever you want. I like AA and AS because the Unicode one is U, Control Shift U, followed by U or I, Control Shift U and I. So yeah, this is ASCII as opposed to Unicode per se, but it's ASCII in Unicode, so let's put it that way. So yeah, you'll have all you Atari heads will have great use of this. I know most of us right now are like much, at least in terms of 6502 coders, more likely had a Commodore 64 when we were kids and were more excited by the 64. And honestly, if I had, I would totally be more into it too. But the reason is the Atari is like, it's kind of an also ran, but it didn't have quite as much power as the Commodore 64. It didn't have as many sprites or as fancy sprites, so you had to really work within its limitations, like the 2600. It had limitations, and you just had to learn to deal with them. All right, let's go on to the next thing, which was the Atari Tools plugin itself. This is a little more, this one I just made with very piecemeal. The first thing I wanted to do was have the ability to do builds of the Atari Basic that would save the file, or take the saved file and pass the path of it to Atari 800 so it would run it, and give you a quick way to have interaction between Sublime and that. Now, of course, having a tool like 8-bit Workshop in the browser and working inside of that is a little more. I like it in terms of its directness. Like as you're editing, you're seeing your changes actually happening on screen, which is great. And this should be the experience that we have in general with, like, I don't know. I'd like to. Frankly, this is great. Like you can switch to the your Commodore 64 and work on stuff just that way in there. But working on it, it's nice to just have something inside the browser to work directly. And then I just use this as a tool, develop the bits of code that I need, figure out my bugs, and then once I've got them sorted out, then I go to Sublime and continue on the code project and figure out, okay, what's the next thing to do here. Reveal in sidebar. Oops. Snorky text. That's the one I should have open. What's the next thing that I need to figure out, and then figure it out in the editor and run it in my tester situation. So, oops, let's go back to the browser. So what I did in this yesterday, while you were away, and while I was having a casual Sunday, instead of going fishing, I went fishing for getting Atari code to work. And one of the things I needed to definitely do was make a thing that could draw text onto this screen in this graphics mode. So in graphics mode, you don't have, like Atari doesn't have a built-in facility to draw text in graphics mode. So if you want to do that, you have to roll your own. So it's not hard. It's just, well, it took me a while. So, if you're rusty in 6502, it might be hard, but I wasn't too hard. Uh, the first thing I did was made a duplicate of the display list from mode 16 plus 15, which is 31, which is basically, or I should say, the internal mode is not 15, it's 14, or OE. So each line of the display list is 0E. There's a 4E for when you want to change the address that you're grabbing, that bit flag there. And then the thing about this particular one is that it goes close to 4K in size, or it's close to 8K in total size. If you take 40 bytes across by 192, you get a total of 7,680 bytes. And the way that the screen DMA works is you can only keep fetching within a 4K blob or block, and then you have to change the base address. And so it's called a load memory scan, LMS. And so halfway down the screen, you basically have to just repoint the screen DMA buffer pointer to the next bit of memory, which it just follows exactly afterwards. The other thing that's here is a little 8 on the 8E you can see, and that's just to have a display list interrupt fire at that particular line. And so it'll fire I'm not sure exactly where it fires. I think it's in the horizontal blank area. So this is called a display list interrupt. You have a vertical blank interrupt that happens at a very particular time when the beam is being moved from the lower right part of the screen back to the top left part of the screen. On older TVs and monitors, that took enough time that it was something to use for extra processing, so you could get more done in that than you could in a single scan line or whatever. And also there was an area of blanking because CRTs had to have a border around them because you never knew where the beam was going to accidentally fly off the edge or whatever. And you had to center things in just the right way. So there was always extra borders around the screen. So you had to have, there was horizontal blanking time when nothing was being done as far as like moving, like shifting bits out or colors out to the screen. So you had more extra time to do stuff if there was no coprocessor doing that for you, so to speak. If you had processors that were doing it, you would get extra time. So very true on the 2600, partially true on the Atari 800, certainly partially true on all these old machines that had limited cycles, and then had to deal with things like interrupts in the middle of the screen and what to do with that. So you have DMA out to the screen by these line 14 modes, and then the final thing at the end is a little jump, telling it to jump back to tell the display list to start back at the top. So pretty cool, and I tweaked this a little bit to make it easier to work with, just pointing the screen and stuff. And it took me a little while to get this working because, as you can see, it still haven't quite gotten it working because there's this crappy blue blob in the middle of the screen, which I haven't sorted out exactly where it's coming from. But what it's indicating is that the screen is repeating. So, like you'll see here, how it's whatever I printed is showing up again. It's not just because the sprite is also being doubled, it's actually because of something about the way that the screen is being repointed isn't working like the way it's supposed to, and I don't know why. It's supposed to be pointing at, like, this part points at 1100, and then this is EB0 bytes of, screen RAM that's being displayed. So then the next piece is supposed to display 1FB0, which is that much more. EB0 plus 1100 is 1FB0, and yet for some reason it doesn't work here, and I haven't figured out exactly why, but I'm not caring too much because it works fine when I actually run it on the Atari emulator in the situation where BASIC is there and it has set up the graphics mode for us. I don't have to worry about that. I do clear the memory, and I've tried clearing it and adding other stuff, but whatever. So yeah, this is a great place to like just play around. I don't know if I would use this to develop an entire thing, but I guess we'll see. I mean, I may end up doing so. You have to build whatever you do in here with DASM. Although I made it so it's pretty easy to make it compatible with my compiler, so which is CA65 in this case. And if I was using another one, like ATASM or something like that, which is more Mac 65 compatible, then that would be another thing. It's a little annoying that you have so many different assembler styles. They're not that much different from each other, but they're different enough that you have to like go through the process of converting each one to the next. And then some use different ways of linking and other things. DASM is sort of seems more tailored to like just doing all in one compile, where CA65 is more built as part of a tool chain with CC65, so it cares more about the linker flags and things like that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, catching up on this, uh, the next thing I did was I sorted out like all my calculations and pointers and so on. I had one issue where I had two of my variables were overlapping in the same memory location, and I kept going, "Why is this not working?" And then I realized, oh wait, this variable and that variable share the same memory. So being more careful about it. I don't know exactly how to do the reserve memory at a different location inside of this. When I try to do it, it complains. There's probably a good way to do it, a simple way to do it. I'll just look through some of the other code examples, maybe the C64 ones, and see if some of them do little reservations of zero page. But the way I did it was fine, I guess. But so if we go through this real quick, this one just sets up the display list. Here's where I clear the display, and so if I change this to, some other value and then run it, oops, you don't have to save it. You just whatever you change. So you can see it's repeating. It's clearly repeating the memory for some reason that it's displaying, and that is why. And it's starting a little behind, so that is why you get this extra bit beforehand, and that's why you can see it shifted pretty much by. You can see this line right here is about the amount of space that's been added. So yeah, something's going on with the DMA point. My little DMA pointer is not working correctly, and I do not know why. I've tried changing things in the display list, and why I don't know. I do it by changing screen 2, of course. Screen 2 is just screen 1 plus 94 times 40. So if I change it to 20, doesn't really make any difference. 40. If I change it to just screen, you can see that it repeats perfectly. So why does it not repeat perfectly when I do it this way? I'm not sure, because it's definitely giving the correct address, like 1FB0 or whatever. And then the full screen size, 192 times 40, is used somewhere later. Oh, for clearing the screen, of course. This is what I do, is I clear the screen. So, yeah, and if I remove the part where I clear the screen, it doesn't really improve things. Like, here's clearing the screen removed, and, it still points to this area of memory that, so it's not like, it's something to definitely do with the way I set up the display list. But again, it works fine in other situations, so it may just be this emulator itself has some issue with it wasn't expecting me to use this graphics mode with these, I don't know. Maybe that wasn't tested, I'm not sure. Anyway, moving on, display list, cool stuff. Of course, you have the option to use text modes if you really want to display text that looks nice at the top or bottom or somewhere in the middle of your game display, but you have to switch to text mode, and then you can't use graphics in that spot, except for player missiles. So it's a compromise. You can also do kind of tricks where if you have a play field where there's going to be blank vertical space and you want to display text where you normally display graphics, you can have the graphics just stay out of the way of that spot, and then modify the display list to stick a text line in there and then display the text nicely, and people will be like, whoa, how did you do the clean looking text in the middle of those chunky graphics, man. And maybe you have a player pass over it just to kind of sell the illusion. But overall, cool trick. You can do all kinds of neat things with smooth scrolling. Maybe I'll get into that at some point because it's a nice thing to have in a game, and as an effect, especially when there's just not a lot of room on the screen to display stuff in a lot of situations. So using a nice smooth scrolling displayed of some scrolling text can be nice. So the way I'm doing this now is I'm only doing the text where it's displayed precisely on the screen at text boundaries that would normally be there. But later I'll do something where I can shift it around probably. But for now I don't really need to. It's fine, to have that limitation is fine. So let's see. So the next thing we did was, okay, this does the thing where it sets up hardware for the player missiles and everything else. We can skip all that. It's the boring stuff. Copy the player data. So it just sets up these little player data into the players themselves twice. And then, in this case, because we're using non-relocatable, this is actually being built like a cartridge. You can actually use this addressing mode where you're just like direct addressing plus an address. This is not an addressing mode per se. This is just taking player missile 0 and adding this much to it, and then taking the result of that, and as if you had stated it as a single value, and then indexing off of Y. You could also index off of X here. So direct addressing with index is nice. Indirect addressing with index is all dandy. You can only use Y and with certain types and X with certain types. But when you have this ability, it's nice. The only thing is it takes up 3 bytes because there's a pointer there. So it's store accumulator, pointer, pointer low, pointer high, or whatever. And so you want to use whenever you can, 0-page stuff is generally more efficient, especially for bigger loops and more complicated things. So, and if you're doing relocatable stuff, you have to use indirect mode pointers, and you can't use direct mode pointers unless you know that your code is running in RAM, in which case you could do self-modifying pointers. I don't necessarily recommend doing that because you never know when your code might be running in ROM or in some protected situation where it can't write to its own code. So avoid that. The case with this is it actually copies the display list to another place in memory, just below the area where the screen memory is going to be. The display list is about 200 and something bytes, so just under a page in size, which is convenient. So it's put in at it's moved to 1000, and then the screen is at 2200 or something like that. Or yeah, it's at 1100. So there it is, 1000. Screen at 1. So okay, so now I haven't really done graphics modes on the Atari before, just because the text modes were they were the most interesting thing because it basically gave you tile maps for free, and interesting tile maps. And I was talking about Eastern Front as a good example of a great use of that kind of like lo-fi, very chunky text mode, with custom characters to display a really interesting playfield situation, and but very minimal, very functional. It's a great game, and yet it does a good job because of the custom characters of dealing with, like, when it needs to display chunky outlines of coasts and borders between countries and stuff. It does a fine job of that. And it gets away with it really well. The thing is, graphics modes, they take up significantly more memory than character modes, so that's why you really want to, like, use the character modes when you can. When you want to have bigger play fields that do scrolling and stuff, you can get away with it a lot larger areas by using character modes. And that was really the greatest trick. And if you had generative levels and stuff, you were even more golden, because then you could kind of choose depending on whether you wanted a large scrolling area or a single map or whatever. This game that I'm making now is going to be a single screen, but I may consider using some scrolling effects to get interesting things in the game to happen, and do some special effects and stuff that kind of give it more of that modern edge that we have in modern games. Using, even though it's as minimal as it is, it's going to be, I'm going to try and use the modern sensibilities, and I'm thinking of taking, I'm taking some inspiration from games like Archon, where the animation is minimal, but it has a style to it, and it gives it a feel, and it's really well mixed with the sound effects, so you get a real good feel for it. I don't know how much you can do with that in a Qbert clone, but I'll do my best to kind of like give it that feel. And even though I won't do like the one of the things that Qbert had, which was really cool, was the voice synthesizer stuff. That was kind of what made it especially unique back in the day. And with the Atari, that's a little more tricky to do, but you can do some interesting things with audio that, give it that, Peanuts teacher voice sound. So we can do something with that. We'll figure it out as we go. But anyway, so this goes through the whole setup, boom, and now we're down to moving the player. Who cares? All it's doing is moving the player, waiting for the vertical blank, so that it's nicely aligned with the vertical blank period and not like tearing on the screen. And then it waits for the display list interrupt. Is this part? Let's see, that's the wait for VB as a subroutine that it uses. Here's the display list interrupt itself, which just takes the player position here, which is, I guess, a variable it uses, and then it inverts it. In other words, subtracts it from 255 and gives it that inverted thing, and so it's on the other side of the screen, and then it changes the color, and also does some things with the priority. Well, that happens elsewhere. I think it's up here. Whenever they reverse, it changes the priority, so it's in front of or behind the background. So anyway, neat effect. We won't be getting too deep into that with this little video here. Wait for vertical blank. Okay, so that's good. Good. Now we're down to the part that's cool, is testing my my text. Yeah, check out this text, man. We got, I decided to make it so that you end it with a bar, because otherwise you have to pass the length, and then you have to then you have to go get you have to put the string in a variable, get the length of the string, and then use the variable when you call the user function. Whereas if you just use this, you don't have to do any of that. You just give it a little thing that ends it. So I use some character that I don't care about, which is this bar character, probably hardly ever use. It makes a good line ending, why not? So next in this case, we got the screen address from our own variables, so that made it easier. In a basic, you would get them from some values that are shadow registers of the screen, or you would get them from the display list itself, or some other place. But anyway, we go apply text position, X position. So to get the X position, we got the X position, we divide it by 4. This all worked fine. We added, boom, this is how you divide by 4, is shifting right twice. We added it to the destination address, and in my final code, this is done with a macro. And then we get the Y position, and this all was correct, so I was good with that. It all writes to the destination address, and then also at the same time I'm writing to the Y offset, Y off address, so that we can pick up the beginning of the top of each character as we go along. We'll always have a pointer to the top of the next destination. And even because we're going down, we have to keep adding 40 to some pointer as we're drawing. So that all works here. And then we did get the text color, put it in a mask, and then I figured out, I can make the mask really easily by, all I have to do is shift the bits over twice and OR them a couple times to take the bottom 2 bits and just copy them over 3 times. So that happens here. Then we got the string address, hello, and I store that in a pointer. So we're going to begin picking up the next character from there, not using a register, but using the pointer. Because we're using y needs to be 0 for our indirect addressing stuff. So it becomes basically useless, or, you have to constantly be transferring it somewhere or storing it away. So just using the pointers sometimes is just the simplest thing, especially for small operations like this, where you're just using it for I'm going to print 12 characters, I'm going to update it 12 times, whatever. Who cares? Basically, it's going to be It's going to be faster than BASIC, and it's going to be as fast as it can be. And you really don't care too much in optimization until later when you want to get into where are the bottlenecks in my code. And if it turns out to be your string drawing for some reason, you can figure out ways to optimize it using, like, if you have extra RAM, pre-calculate your data that from your characters in a different way. I don't know. There's probably all kinds of tricks you could do. Make tables for your, and so you don't have to multiply by 40. You just look up things in a table. Like multiplying by 40 is annoying, So why do I want to do that? Let's just make a table of 192 pointers, which is, you're going to use 384 bytes just to make the thing faster. If you have those 384 bytes to spare, you might as well, pre-calculate things is always a good way to optimize in the final stages. But you got to look at what resources you have remaining as well. And, maybe do you want to use those for optimizing, or do you want to, add more graphics or more music or more, you've got so many trade-offs in these little platforms. Especially when you're making something that's targeted to be a cartridge size. So the thing I think is, I guess you could say that I feel like, am I spinning my wheels playing with code from, 40-year-old machines that are long dead essentially, uh, and and yet, none of these principles goes away. That's the thing. We always are going to have smaller processors that are best programmed in these languages. We're always going to have, and especially now, like, you can get a little handheld thing that's, or an app for your phone that is effectively has all the powers of all the 6502 machines in them, and, you know under the hood, the way that you code them, even though they're emulating, you could write things that are very similar, say Pico 8, for example, and have it skip all that bloody emulation stuff. But if you're building for real hardware as well, that's something that's a real 6502, then you're going to have to write this kind of thing. Of course, these days we'll be using ARM a lot, so you would be writing, C or C++, and then that's going to take care of writing all your ARM code for you. I would not. This is one of the things, is I definitely, in my evolution of time, I was like, okay, if I can get away from using assembly because I don't have to, uh, that'll be fine. But I was fine with using it if that was the pathway in the way that computers were going to continue working. If 68,000 code was going to be the way of the future, I was totally fine with that, because the 68,000 is a pretty cool machine that is a lot of fun to, well, frankly, it's a lot of fun to program. It's got a lot of registers. It's got, like, and when you've got hardware behind it, like the Amiga, or say the Sega Genesis, or, what's it called? The Sega Mega Drive in other places, the Genesis Mega Drive. When you've got that kind of hardware power along with a 6502, it's kind of like, wow, pretty cool. Or 68,000, I should say. Like, I was totally happy with that. But then as processors got more complicated, like past the 68,000, when you got to the Power PC, it was starting to get like, I don't know if I really want to type this stuff anymore. I'd rather do this in C. And so it, like, quickly dawned on me that, well, I'm just going to have to, like, move on and do C, C++, and be happy with that. But I really enjoyed this process of working at the assembly level and solving these problems, like, in these, like, very meticulous ways. That, and also, like, when you do C and C++, and you go and look at the assembly code, if you've done assembly code, it kind of makes you sad, because you'll see a lot of stuff that, yeah, it's very cool and optimal, But then you'll see a lot of stuff that is like, ooh, they're just doing it that way because that's the way, you got to always clear the carry flag or whatever. So always it's using that one extra instruction. You're like, oh, you don't need to clear the carry there because the thing before is going to guarantee it's clear. So you don't worry about that. As an assembly coder, you can kind of notice those things and optimize away one or two little instructions that would otherwise make your function just a little too long or whatever. So I don't know. There's a lot of fun in this process. It's a problem solving thing, and it's a fun glimpse into the way we used to do things, of course. So I feel like it's worthwhile to continue to play with these technologies, and also as I've repeatedly said, I have this thing where I just never got stuff done. In the 80s, I got a few things done that were like, continuing to really build, but then it was like, where do I put this? Where do I publish this? What do I do with it? These days, it's like you can just put it out now and give it to the world, and there will be, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions who like what you've done and put it on their old emulators. And now the thing is, you can run this anywhere. It's not like everyone has to have a particular platform in order to run this particular game that I'm working on. You'll be able to run it in any Atari emulator. And if I want to package it up as something else and make it like more widely available, I could package it with an emulator and have it run in the emulator as a completed package with all the cruft pulled out that it doesn't need. Like depending on the emulator, it might not need, all the stuff that it does for XL, so I can pull out all the XL stuff and just have it build for old school Atari. Check it out. It's actually gone into attract mode. I love it. So let's continue to look at my code anyway. So we get a character. In this case, we look at the bar and we exit if it's a bar. And whereas basically this branch is about as big as a branch can get at this point. It's getting there anyway. I think the largest branch is like 7F or something. Excuse me. More coffee, baby. 7F. So anyway, we now take only the low bits. We compare this with 2-0, and if it's greater than that carry set, we skip this bit where we add 4-0 to it and then jump to here. If it's so if it's not less than 32 or 2-0, then we've gotten to here. We check and see, hey, is it less than 96? In which case, in that case we need to, in other words, it's between 32 and 33 and 96. If it is, we EOR or flip this bit, and that gives us the screen the lookup in the font for the ASCII code. And then we have to take that and multiply it by 8. So we have, first we load X and store it in this high byte here. And then we take the accumulator, which currently has our lookup value, and we shift it left twice. Multiplying it by 2, multiplying it by 4, and each time we do, we rotate this left by 1, and then we rotate that left by 1. So basically multiplying a 16-bit value by 8. And you may be wondering why I am not doing the ROL at this point. I'm actually wondering that myself. Why don't I do it here? I'm not sure. There may be a reason for that. Let's see. If we know the lookup is going to be an odd number, I don't know. There may be some reason that I didn't do that. Anyway, it works with or without it, which is kind of funny. But the reason is because the high byte is like probably not going to roll over at this point. The value we have is, that's why. I know that it's between, we've gotten rid of the high bit, so we don't have to worry about that being rolled in, because it's been ANDed with 7F. That makes sense. Okay. I was actually awake when I did that, so it's cool. So we don't need that to worry about that. We multiply it by 4. At that point, we need to worry about the high bit maybe coming out, and then the same here. So we multiplied it by 8. We're all good. Now we add that to the pointer of D source, and we add the font pointer basically. And so now we have, voila, the pointer to the character. Finally. So now we want to draw it on the screen. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to do 8 bytes. We're going to take some glyph bits. We're going to move to the next address. And the way I'm doing this add out of an address is using an increment branch increment pattern, which is smaller in code by 2 bytes than adding with carry a couple of times and simplifies things a little bit. You don't use the accumulator at all, or the X or any registers at all. So it's a little bit more convenient sometimes to do it that way. You just directly increment, do a branch, directly increment, and carry on. So good when you're only incrementing by 1. If you're doing by 2, add with carry might be more simple in that case. Anyway, now we're storing the byte we got into the destination, and now we're adding 40 to the destination address, which I do with a macro in the final code. And then we decrement X, and then we branch back. So we're copying those 8 bytes onto the screen, 40 bytes each onto each line. Next character in the string. Look at this, all this meticulous stuff. Next character in the string, so we point to the next character in the string using our increment trick. We get the next destination address, which is stored in the Y-off, which is a copy of ddest. So now we're copying it into ddestination, which sets it up to be ready for the next character in the string. We're all ready to go, and we branch BNE. Since we know this is going to be non-zero, we know that BNE will take us there every time. So again, this is a case of we don't have a branch, a BRA, like we do on the 68,000, but we can effectively get the same thing by branching on some condition we know is true. And then the exit is just stuck down here, because it can't really be anywhere else without using a branch over it. So yeah, as long as this function stays short enough, we're good. Now, this is where things get a little weird. I had to, or more fun, I had to go and expand this to, well, I'll show you what our final result looked like in my test code. So let's make test list, and now we'll run it. So here's the test list, and we're going to print hello world on the screen. Loading. Here we go. Voila, all that done in Atari Basic. So that's how quickly Atari Basic can do a bunch of stuff if you just mix in some assembly. You'll see how quickly that cube pile drew. That's pretty fast. You know, if I was to do that with plot and draw commands, it takes instead of 3 seconds, it takes 30 seconds, which is ridiculous. So now you can see my text is drawing. Look, HELLO Atari. I'm drawing it big and wide. What? How did I get to there? Well, that was the next step. Is I had to okay, now how do I take the bits and expand them? So if I don't have a nice font that's already set up for you'll notice how ugly this is, and that's because it's using a font that's meant for, a single color display with 1 bit per pixel, and it's displaying it as 2 bits per pixel, and so you end up with something that is kind of readable, but not that readable. Could be more readable. Whoa, you can barely read that. So I wanted to sort that out, and so the way to do it was, and I actually worked out this code without using the 8-bit workshop, so that was pretty cool. Actually sorted it out using my mind alone, just my imagination. So let's take a look at what that extra step was. So to draw a character now, instead of just drawing the 1 byte, we have to get and expand those bits out. So this is an extra process here to shift out the bits and expand them. So we need to go through a loop of 8 bits wide. So we take the accumulator here is going to be a single byte from the character, a single line of bits from the character map from the font. So we now want to shift out the high bit and rotate it left into C bits plus 1. So we got, and then we're rotating. As we rotate left C bits plus 1, its high bit is going to go into the carry flag, and so we now can rotate that into C bits, the low byte of this 2 byte thing that I set up for it called C bits, which is just a 0-page address. And so now I get the byte again. Now I could have done something like TAX, but I need X. I could have done TAY, but I need Y. So instead I just stored it in memory. And it only needs to do this 8 times. It's not a big deal to store and load from memory 8 times. The alternative would be to, store and load something, either the Y registers or something, so might as well do it this way. So I used get the A bits, then load them back, then shift them left again. So we're basically getting exactly what the carry flag. The only reason we're doing this is so we can get the same bit out again. So we get, rather than taking the shifted one. We could do something like bit number 1 maybe, and that might do it as well. But I'm not sure what bit does. We should take a quick look at the bit command, and just, this is one I could use here. So, but I'll skip ahead, skip to the chase and get done with what's going on here. So now that I have these two bytes set up with the 8 bits shifted into them twice each time, I now have all the 8 bits shifted out with each bit shifted into 2 bits into this bigger mask. And so now I can just draw the two bytes, and so I load Y with a 1. It's currently 0, so we know that is the case. So I could actually, yeah, see, I decrement Y here, so I could just do here increment Y instead of setting it to 1. We know it's 1, so we could make a comment there to that effect. And then we get those bits from bits 1. And why are we doing it in this direction? Well, the main reason is because we want Y to end up being 0 after this. So just incrementing it first and then decrementing it is maybe, it's effectively the same as doing this increment here and then decrement after. So that's fine too. That would work. So yeah. So this gets those bits, stores them. We increment Y. We get the next set of bits. We could do it here too. Oops. Let's move it down right here just so it's convenient to see that it's like just doing the one thing. So and mask, store it dedest, then get the low bits and them with the mask, which is our color mask. So this just gives us the color, no matter where the bits are. And then that allows it to draw it in those 3 lovely colors that we saw. Hello Atari world. And so there, all done. Now we just, when we go to the next character in the string, in the Y offset we add 2 instead of adding 1. So that's pretty much it. And then we also store it in the destination at the same time. So I would use my macro here, but it's more convenient. If I'm writing to 2 pointers at the same time, it's more convenient to just write to them at the same time rather than doing the thing and then copying it afterward with an extra load store. So that's that. Again, these assemblers don't optimize for you. They don't notice things like that. Although if they did, that would be fine. Like if it could notice, like, oh, you're doing a thing where you're loading and storing to this pointer after you did this thing. Well, why not just store to the pointer while you're doing it? That would be neat. So these aren't always pointers. I should mention that. So I renamed this to add 16 instead of for a 16-bit. I may just change it to add word instead, since that's what we call 16 bits on an Atari. And then we call it a long. I think word long. Yeah, we just call it a word and a long. If it's 32 bits, and we don't generally use much 32-bit stuff on the Atari. We just 8 and 16 usually does the trick for the kinds of numbers we need to deal with in our games. Since our screens aren't that big, 160 is by 192, both of those numbers fit within a byte. So pretty convenient. It's the 320 by 192 screen that really gets to you. So yeah, so that works great. So I got the Atari now drawing. Let's see if my little tweaks make any difference. So now I got the thing displaying text, wide text. So now the only trick is, oops, see, I broke it. I broke it. What did I do? Oh, I see. I see what I did there. There you go. C bits. Wish I could do that. That'd be neat. I don't know if that makes a difference. Probably not. 0 page with Y off. I don't think that's even a thing. Like, it probably won't even let me. What? It does? Oh, that's nice. See, in that case, I could do a thing with a little loop. But I don't really need to, obviously. But that would be neat, wouldn't it? Okay, so now it should bloody work. And the verdict is, yes, it works. Okay, cool. So anyway, yeah, it's really fun to optimize. You can play with that kind of optimization all day. And now you can see why I'm such a great person to work on Marlin. At that low level, like if I could get more into the firmware, like assembly code, and really hit the parts that need optimization, I probably would. But it turns out that you can get a lot. You can do most of that in C++ because the compilers are so good. As long as like when you're working with integers and doing basic math operations in a loop or whatever, it's very good at figuring out where to unroll that loop, where to pre-calculate things into a variable, or into a constant that it reuses, or a register or whatever. Register aliasing. If you look at the Advent of Code series that was done by Matt Godbolt on the subject of compiler optimization, that gives you a really good insight into what compilers are doing to figure out where to put optimizations in your code. So, and he's also done a series where he looked into whether, or I should say, at least a lecture, which took some time, some research, as to whether modern compilers can produce optimized code for 6502. And the interesting way that he went about it was to do compilation for the x86, as I recall, as part of it, and then pare it down from there to C64. I don't know. You'll have to check it out, but in essence, it shows that compilers, yes, they can optimize things to the point where, optimize away stuff so that you don't end up with a big mess, and you end up with something that is pretty optimal for what you would want on a Commodore 64 or an Atari type platform. So if you do want to use modern tools, you can, but I would recommend generally, having not done it myself yet, but when you really want to get working with rapid and, good enough development and get something done. Use CC65, program in C as close to the metal as you know, and just let some of the assembly be bad or, less optimal than you would make it. And then later, after you've produced the assembly output, you can go through it. And with 6502, it's not, I wouldn't say trivial, but it's not so bad to go through and optimize code that's been pumped out of a C compiler, because the assembly will be very rote, and you'll be able to see some of those cases where, oh, don't need to clear the compiler, the carry flag here. Oh, I could do this by using this method, or there's all kinds of tricks you may know, and there may even be things like forbidden opcodes that are fine to use in your case, and maybe the compiler should have picked them. And I don't know. We don't know much about forbidden opcodes, and I'm probably not gonna use them in this project. But if I really needed to, like, do something crazy optimization, and the only way to do it was to use some forbidden opcode, that would be pretty cool. The forbidden opcodes, by the way, are things that weren't necessarily spec'd for the final version of the language, the assembly language, the machine language of the 6502. Numbers that, if you try to use them as instructions, they will do weird things that aren't necessarily like meaningful, or part of the spec, but they're there just because of the way that the mapping of the numbers that go in as instructions to the microcodes inside of the processor, like the mapping just makes them do these weird things. So use them if you want, but they do some very strange stuff. I forget what some of them are, like things like, I don't know, transfer X to the, there may be well, you've got transfer X to the accumulator, but there's one that will like transfer X to the accumulator and clear X or something like that. You don't know. There's weird stuff. Although something that cleared a register, that would be pretty useful. Load in 0 every time is like, seems kind of like a waste, whole byte. All right, where were we? And yeah, it also doesn't have the concept of like subtracting a register from itself and things like that. Like, why would you want to do that? But on ARM, subtracting EA from EA or whatever, EAX from EAX, XORing it's a number with itself is a typical way to clear it. Not so much on the 6502. So yeah. So pretty neat. Our test code is now working. So we got some good things going here. So I have a pretty decent little way of pulling out parts of my code and forcing them to work. So of course I'm not going to throw that updated thing in here, but just to see it happen in the emulator. We've got it working in my other emulator, so we're all good. But I will definitely be using this in future times. So at the moment, I'm going to take a break to go get some sustenance. The coffee is good, but I think I need a little more. And then I'll come back, and we'll be getting into my Marlin workload at that point. But again, we're just having a casual day here, carrying on with the stuff that I tend to in my interests. I got several projects on deck, so that's kind of what makes it interesting. I think more interesting here than a lot of places. I'm doing the 3D printing stuff, I'm doing the retro stuff, I'm doing the VS Code plugin stuff to support the Marlin firmware 3D printing stuff. And I'm also doing a few other things on the side. Like I got a little Unity project going that I'll eventually finish. I've got so many things on tech, so stick around. I'll be back in a bit.